Welcome back everyone, my name is Eltimar and we are going to be continuing our Let's Play of Disco Elysium. Last time we were discussing...
Good. What can I help you with?
Reality with this woman. We have more things to do. So... I'm gonna go with, well, more lessons in basic reality. She's positively surprised, my favorite part of the day. Go ahead, ask me anything. What times are these? These are unimportant times, detective. She puts her fingers to her lips, then points at you. You and I were born after the dust had settled. A thousandth of a second too late. Too late for what? For the big time. Her eyes light up. There's a flash of teeth. What is the big time? The revolution, she says. Huh. And what is this revolution I keep hearing about? It's quite easy. Every 100 years or so our species gets together to decide what's next. Who gets shot in the head and who gets the mineral rights. It's a real kerfuffle. Would you say it's a bunch of apes duking it out? Why, of course. We're talking Duke Out Central, full swing interspecies warfare. And the apes, were they evil? No, I would say the apes were neutral. She looks at you, her gaze sharp. Okay, neutral. On the other hand, she turns east to the bombed out buildings lining the waterfront, then shivers slightly. It takes time for apes to change and work. Perhaps what happened here was part of that time, and part of that work. Who got shot in the head? Those would be the communists. Generally speaking, 40 million people got shot in the head during the World Revolution, but the communists, they all got shot in the head. She's not gloating. It's a relieved celebration. Oh, and the anarchists too. They shot them well. So well, one forgets they even existed. She likes the totality of it. You could say they got totally shot in the head. Indeed. They piled them in mass graves in Ozon, and well, that's the last anyone heard of those people. Did the communists and anarchists shoot back? Did they ever? Before they got shot themselves, they shot 2 million people. That is truly a kerfuffle. Actually, sounds like they should have shot more people in the head then. This does not represent the official RCM opinion, the lieutenant says from behind his notes. Don't worry. Krasmazov shot 15 million people in the head, but that was all the way over in Grad. Anyone else get shot in the head on the opposing side? Oh, lots of people. Even the king got shot in the head, or thrown beneath a horse, or drowned. Accounts differ. It was unceremonious, she shakes her head. Just as well, he wasn't actually the king, just the king's nephew. The real king abdicated and lived out a long and productive life as a venture capitalist in Grad. Cowardly king. I prefer the term risk-averse. King Guillemot was nobody's fool. He could smell a PR disaster brewing, so he got out alive, and his nephew Frizzell got shot in his place. Him and tens of thousands of his wonderfully fascist kingsmen. It was a wild time. Who got the mineral rights? The liberals got the mineral rights. She looks up at the sky, and then inland at the crumbling village. The wind blows. And by mineral rights, I mean everything. Okay, and by liberals you mean? Liberals are usually middle-class people, detective. Or the remaining gentry. The beneficiaries of the pre-revolutionary arrangement. Some were rich enough to stay with the constitution, with monarchy, big mistake. Others bet on the revolution. They were called the ultras or ultra-liberals. They fared well. How did the liberals win at all? They didn't win so much as survive. We were the last ones standing when the war ended. Everyone else got shot in the head, remember? Well, she's one of them, of course. If everyone got shot, who was there to surrender to? To foreign intervention, the coalition, those people really took the mineral rights. Wait, you said the liberals took everything. The liberals took everything that wasn't nailed to the ground, the coalition took the ground. She stomps her rubber-booted foot. The ocean, the laws, and the people. Who are the coalition? The coalition of nations. Grad, Mesk, Vesper, Messina, Oranier, and Surlaclef. The armed center of the world. They landed here and ended the revolution. It was the moralist thing to do. There's a bitterness in her voice, tempered with understanding. She is critical, but ultimately she understands the cause. Moralist? The moralists believe in keeping everything exactly the way it is. They believe in mineral rights and not shooting people in the head. At least not in the same manner and volume as the others do. They are the long-standing provisional rulers of Revachol now, the coalition government. This is their special administrative region. They embolden the RCM with crumbs of the same law they took. Technically speaking, you are a moralist. The color of moralism is blue. The official model of the moral intern or moralist international is a blue forget-me-not, a piece of the grey sky, unofficial. For a moment, there was hope. I don't think I'm a moralist, ma'am. Of course, she sizes you up. Not easy to be moderate about head shooting in your line of work. Rudy Tooty, point and shooty. That's the way of history, she nods. When was this kerfuffle? Turn of the century revolution? She smiles mischievously. Don't answer it, it's a trick question. The revolution began in '02 on the Grand Isla, though by the end, nearly the whole world had gotten involved. Who started it? It wasn't a who but a what, a pandemic of Zarath, a particularly virulent prion disease, which the authorities in Grad proved unable to contain. Then Mazov came along and overthrew the government. What's it do? It made people overthrow their government. Oh, really? Of course not. It was a highly infectious microorganism that destroyed the brain tissue. The actual cause of the revolution were material. The pandemic only provided the spark. It was a funny time in history. They discovered transistors and rock music, but they didn't know anything about prions. Nobody did. Where did it spread from there? From Rivishal and Grad? Not far. The world managed to cauterize itself. Mazov's government was overthrown in '08, and the coalition crushed the Rivishal commune 2 years later. It was the end. What came next? Why, you and I, officer. She spreads her arms, raincoat flapping in the wind. Our lives in the special administrative region. And what is that? A city-state divided into free market zones under the everlasting interregnum of coalition nations. And you, of course, the citizens' militia. The special administrative region is the third incarnation of Revishal after the failure of the suzerain and the commune. What happened to the rest of the world? Modernity. They developed the marvels of interstellar communication, telematic milieux, radiation, colored plastics. Meanwhile, in Revishal West, the aftermath continues for the 5th decade. 51 minus 8, that's 43. What you're seeing, it's been like this for 43 years? Time flies. What have we been doing all that time? The 20s saw a decade of urban war, west of the river leveled, offshore platforms in flames. Still is regarded as an improvement on what became before. 08 to 19 was simply hell. And after that? The 30s? Things settled down in the 30s. Revishal East transformed itself into the world's largest tax haven, with the international community's blessing. For the first time in a long time, it seemed like things were going somewhere. All that untaxed income must have fueled the new. That can only mean one thing. That's when they discovered disco. Yes, and quantitative easing. It was a market mirage, unfortunately. The 40s dispelled it. An Isolar-wide hangover, you might say. So here we are, she curtsies. We got a reality lowdown and got 70 experience. Welcome to reality, baby. From the looks of it, the 50s haven't been much better for the special administrative region. You can see it in her eyes, days slipping away. You don't seem to be thrilled. I have no right to be dissatisfied, she shakes her head. This shirt is Barbara Moskova. This raincoat is impervious to rain and is guaranteed for 100 years. My daughters will wear it. She looks at the eternite roofs and cinder blocks soaking in the sea air. Her voice is almost wistful. We could have had so much more, every one of us, if only we'd played it right. What would you have done differently? Good question, she cranes her neck. What would you have done differently? No, her first. I would have killed more. 400 million if that's what it took. I see, 1/10 of humanity. She's unfazed. The key of history is in the lock. Keep turning at any cost. At any cost, until humanity is free and the age of capital is past. Past? She cocks her head to one side. That's what Dobreva, the leader of the Communard, said before she got a bullet in her head. Don't get me wrong. There's sadness in her voice. Capital is finished, but understand this. Its end won't free anyone. It will only lead to more suffering. The lieutenant puts down his notes for a second. Opinions expressed here do not reflect the official position of the RCM. She turns to him. And what is your official position, Lieutenant? My position, ma'am? My parents got ripped to shreds in the revolution. I would have gone the same way. I was saved by being 2 years old. That's my position. The abattoir. Understandable, she nods. That's about it for that. They are what they are. Who knows? After an afterbloom may yet come. An afterbloom may yet come. Anyways, enough sentimentality. Is there anything else we want to know? We have 2 things to do here. We need some esprit de corps and some conceptualization, but we have more conversation pass. I want to know what you are. She hums. She won't maneuver her way to this one. What are you? I am the vilest of the vile, she says with a sudden flash of teeth. A traitor, a devourer of nations and infants. I'm an ultra. She raises the corner of her mouth, smirking, revealing a canine. Cool, I liberate pretty hard myself. No, she shakes her head. Slowly, not like me. I am the nether creature of the Forbidden Swamp who pushed the king under a shit wagon and betrayed the revolution. Are you liberated enough to offer up your home on a plate for financial colonist? She looks you in the eye. No, I think not. Tell me. Now that I've uncoiled myself, do you find me frightening? In her green eyes you see a mixture of truth and self-satire, decades of guilt and pride. I forgive you. I hope you do. I hope we are able to continue as friends despite my scales and my need to infiltrate and betray your precious revolution. Honestly, she pauses, I might even have preferred it had the communards won. Who knows? They might really have built something better, but they didn't because they lost. When the dust settled, the liberals were the only ones left to clean up the mess. By virtue of their survival, they were handed enormous power that shaped the future. She turns her gaze to the Delta. This was all our generation managed. What would you have done differently? With due respect to our overlords, the eternal caretaker government that keeps Martinez a monument to the efficacy of its artillery, I would not have relinquished sovereignty to the coalition, not here in Martinez and not in the Stella Mari or Delta beachheads either, if not for my own sake. She realizes her small cold fists are clenched. She loosens them. Then for my daughters, we have an obligation to defend our sovereignty. We should have burned the whole Isla down rather than let them have it. You're a patriot. Yes, I suppose I am, but I wouldn't be a patriot anywhere but here. Seditious talk, ma'am. Kim puts down her notes and gives her a look. You're a smart woman, perhaps. Her earrings chime as she nods. My intellectual vanity will be my undoing. You're no dummy yourself. So am I. A smart boy getting smarter, one basic term of reality at a time. You have daughters? Yes. Whatever else I am, I'm also a mother and a wife. She closes her eyes and opens them again. Now, shall we return to reality? What is this? A bird? She tilts her head. A sphenicid? A flightless bird of the polar regions? Keep guessing. Some sort of krill hunter? No, wait. She raises her eyebrows. You're an ancient ruin, a symbol of hubris and decay. Half submerged in some salty sea. Are you saying I'm ruined? Of course you're not, my dear. I'm just terrible at guessing games. I meant, what is this place here? This place is an unmarked micro-settlement on the coast of Martinez. She gestures towards a collection of cinder block dwellings covered in highly carcinogenic roofing material. It's lovely, really. I'm thinking of buying it. Really? Actually, yes, the thought did cross my mind when Mademoiselle Liliane over there told me about the fresh produce these women sell to restaurants on La Delta. You both turn to consider the young woman. She's hunched over a net, methodically picking out ribbons of plastic. This place could use a competent manager. There's so much to be done, but then I'll never get around to it, will I? There's regret in her voice for all the countless things she never had time to do with her money. Doubtless I'll be off someplace, keeping social classes from each other's throat. There's a pause. Let's go back to the basics of reality, should we? Okay, we're going to put some gear on for esprit de corps and conceptualization. We're almost in this whole conversation path. It's been a long one. That's neither of those things. That's esprit de corps. But that's conceptualization. Alright, we'll do esprit de corps first. Ooh, that's even better. And it's also fancier looking. Nothing here yet. We have a lot of coats to give that particular skill, but not a lot of other things yet. In fact, possibly no other things give that at all. Are we wearing anything that gives negative to that? The answer to that is no. So, that's as high as it goes, 42%. We'll give it a couple shots. There's a solid chance we won't get
You're
it.
back. Good. What can I help you with?
That's 58%. We might get it. 6 kilometers southwest in the Valley of Dogs, Junior Officer Chad Tilbrook takes aim at a rabid black dog licking its wounds in the grass. To his left, his partner Emile Mullins whispers, "You heard what happened in Tequila Sunset in Martinez?" "Yes, he lost his mind," Tilbrook answers, finger on the trigger. "Don't worry, Emile." He pulls on it slowly. Slowly now. He'll find it again. We always do. What am I? You're an officer of the RCM, she says energetically. The Revachol Citizens Militia? Precisamundo. Good, and what is the Revachol Citizens Militia? Nothing more or less than the de facto law enforcement body of the post-revolutionary Revachol detective. Yes, the lieutenant steps in to make a gesture encompassing you both. We are the Revachol Citizens Militia. He's being sarcastic. Are we? We are. You said de facto? Yes, that means not de jure. The RCM acts in what is poetically called the twilight of international law, both at the behest of the coalition government and to its chagrin. What do you mean? The RCM's responsibilities are defined by the Emergency, Wayfarer, and Elements Acts, 3 pieces of legislation keeping the city in, let's be honest, laissez-faire stasis to the benefit of foreign capital. All 3 are good to know. The lieutenant looks up from his notes when we're out policing. So I'm basically a thrall to foreign interests. There's nothing basic about your role, detective. It's true that the RCM keeps everything the way our seemingly permanent provisional rulers like it. She leans in. Yet on the other hand, I know these people. I know these people. I deal with them daily. Let me tell you, dear, they are not fans of you. Why? The post-revolutionary decade was a disaster for the coalition government. Revachol in the 20s was hell, especially on the west side of the river. Gang warfare, a botched privatization scheme, a nuclear pile meltdown. They called it the International Zone because no nation wanted to claim responsibility. The RCM restored peace when the coalition failed. A true blue citizens initiative. She smiles. They will never forgive you. That's somewhat of an exaggeration, the lieutenant interjects. In reality, ours is a mutually beneficial arrangement. Revacholians get to keep the peace in Revachol, and the coalition doesn't have to worry about it. He coughs. Anyway, sorry to intrude. Please continue. Yes, Lieutenant. I can't even talk today. Permit me to conclude with this. Who you are, to me, is the police. The only legitimate law enforcement authority in Revachol. Thank you, ma'am. And if those authorities drink so hard they need to help recalling the basic terms of reality, well, I'm here to help. She bows and smiles. Okay, we need conceptualization now, which is a bit harder for us, because I don't think we have as much gear that gives it. I'll put this jacket on first. We must have something that gives conceptualization. We need more equipment, I think. We really don't have a whole lot of conceptualization gear. Are we wearing anything that lowers conceptualization? No. Okay. Let's try it out. It's a fairly low chance.
Good. What can I help you with?
Yeah, we're gonna have a rough time getting it. Let's try again. We'll try a couple times to succeed. It's only a 17% chance, so if we don't get it in like 3 or 4 attempts, we'll just leave it.
You're back.
Actually, we'll make a statistic. 6 attempts should theoretically give us a success. So it's 2. Is it 6 attempts? Yeah, around there actually.
You're back. Good. What can I help you with?
It's a fairly low chance. We could put a point to conceptualization, but I really don't want to, in all honesty.
You're back. Good. What can I help you with?
I think we're done. That was 4, so 5th one now.
You're back. Good. What can I help you with?
And the last one. We can come back later or throw a point. You know what? We can just throw a point in and try it. Maybe if we don't. We'll try this one. I'll throw a point in. We'll try it one more time.
Good. What can I help you with?
Then again, we just got it. See? Statistics. What is all of this? The scent, the sound, the air. What world is this? What world? The fading pearls of her eyes look to the sea. The only one, I suppose. The world of matter and its pale antipode. The camera of her mind glides over the surface of the water. What do you see? Great bodies of water, forest-covered surfaces, clusters of light where cities lie. You've seen the montage. We all have. This world is enough, she concludes. It must be. This is the greatest and kindest arrangement of atoms. The atoms had in them. The best of all possible worlds. Indeed, there's a term of endearment they coined for it. In the DeLorean century, when humanity was high on this world, discovering more and more of it, these archipelagos included... what is it? Elysium. Elysium. The world needs a term of endearment. It does. There are those who would call it hell. What is hell? A term of hatred that originates, like so many things, with the Mesk petrofascists. I don't feel like I've gotten the whole picture yet. Oh, you want a picture of the world? She raises her fingers to her lips. There's no complete set yet, dear. They're having some trouble reaching orbit. How come? Great things are difficult to achieve. For now, we're viewing the world from the inside, sideways. How about it's a ball? That's looking less and less likely, detective. You wouldn't know it from the tabloids, but the ORG nations have been launching weather balloons into the lower ionosphere since the 30s. Org. Occidental Revichelgrad. There's a steadily increasing trickle of images. Between the big three, they're piecing together a dark gray corona. What is that? Yes, she pauses. Pale covers 72% of the surface. There are gray flares and prominences, even arcs above entire islas. The images are blurry, but if there was a sphere in there, it certainly looks like it fractured a long time ago. A cold fear seeps into you. Oh my god, wait, what the hell are you telling me? You seem to be spooked. Please don't be. Her voice becomes homely, calm. She lets a moment pass. The Pale, and what do you mean the corona? They say there's a rarefied envelope of matter surrounding the darkened disk of our planet. That is, if we are still living on a planet. Or to speak more plainly, imagine vast swaths of land disrupted by nothingness. I'm sorry, dear, she looks around. It must sound quite terrifying. Through the acute encephalopathy. Yeah. Even scientific positivism isn't entirely convinced about what we're dealing with here. But this is one of the great questions of our time. Maybe when they get the complete set together, it will jolt us out of our rut, bring us together, however naive it may sound. A fractured corona doesn't feel like it's going to bring anyone together. You have misimagined it. I don't have the power to convey you the effect and geometry of the images that depict our world from below low orbit. She looks up. It's like the crowning of the world. It's insane. Very disco. You'd love it. I don't care about disco. I only care about the commune. See? Everyone finds something worth holding on to in the world, however wasted its opportunities. Suddenly you're conscious of yourself standing there on whatever all this is. Your arms hang down by your sides. The lieutenant observes you both silently. He adjusts his glasses. What is the Pale? The Pale is not technically speaking part of reality. Yes, the lieutenant looks at his watch. Also, I think we've had enough excitement for today. We do have a case to attend to. Of course, Lieutenant. She bows and turns to you. Let's try something else. I don't want to. I want to know what the Pale is. I don't think your colleague would appreciate that. He has already been so patient with this whole exercise. Let's continue with something else, alright? She leans against the railing. You can ask about anything else in the world. Anything. You could sneak back later when the lieutenant is not here, unless you can convince him to step aside. Step aside. Good idea, just ask him. He won't make a scene. Kim, can I talk to the man alone for a second? Fine, he steps away with his notes. See? What can he do? You're a grown man. Now what's the Pale? Are you sure? You're sure? Your colleague seemed adamant. Yes, what is it? Okay, she concedes. The Pale is the most dominant geological feature of the world, detective. The separative tissue between the islas. It is the inter-isillary mass. Okay, and what's the Pale like? Achromatic, odorless, featureless, the Pale is the enemy of matter and life. It is not like any other or anything in the world. It is the transition state of being into nothingness. Is it here? No, detective, we're safe. She points to the sea. It begins there, 6,000 kilometers to the north, and even more to the south and east and west. You're in the middle of the Isla, and north? An uproar of matter, darling, rising into the Pale, rolling, evaporating even. A great vision. The area of transition between the world and the Pale is called the porch collapse. Imagine a grey coronal mist, cold vapor marked by spores of an opportunistic microorganism, a mold that's adapted to grow at the edge of the unrest. She closes her eyes and breathes out heavily. The most disco thing you'll ever see. What are its physical qualities? It's difficult to describe or even measure, something whose fundamental property is the suspension of properties. Physical, epistemological, linguistic. The further into the Pale you travel, the steeper the degree of suspension, right down to the mathematical. Numbers stop working. Nobody has yet to pass through the numbered barrier. It may be impossible. There's a slippery article in there. Is it the Pale or Pale? Pale when it's particular, this territory of Pale. The Pale when it's Pale, in its entirety. Once you've seen it, she tosses her head. Language balks at the difference. If we're surrounded by a Pale, how do you get from Isla to Isla? Oh, it is. Her lungs deflate. Her words sound like a sigh. So difficult for us. A squall of birds, hardware operating in the harbor. Firm, self-evident. It's possible to force dimensions on the Pale. In modern times, we can even compress its latitude, bouncing radio waves from one end to the other, shortening the path. But it's still hard for humans to navigate the Pale without getting lost or having our minds damaged. The Pale can damage the mind? Extensively. How? Some say the damage stems from extreme sensory deprivation, others that the Pale somehow consists of past information that's degrading, that is rarefied past, not rarefied matter. They call it the blend over of the self. The Pale does not only suspend the laws of physics, but also the laws of psychology, maybe history, even. The human mind becomes over-radiated by past. Who says and who argues? Who says and who argues? The logical positivists say that dialectical materialists argue. What does this over-radiation feel like? It feels terrible, absolutely terrible. International standards strictly limit civilian travelers to 6 days of pale exposure per year. It's more for her, way more. You're not a civilian passenger. No, Lieutenant Dubois. I'm entropinetic business class. I'm cleared and trained for 22 days of pale transit annually. Perhaps that explains her strange pining after the revolution, some degraded early memories. Are you over-radiated? Up to my gills, officer. What is entropinetic? Entropinetics, she corrects, is the scientific study of the pale, or a recent iteration of it, by way of Grodd. The study of the pale reaches back 6,000 years. The Paracarnassians called it the Western Plain. They had not traveled the entire circumference of the Paracarnassian superinsula. It was not merely in the west, it was everywhere, even then, surrounding them. Did they cross it, the Western Plain? There are signs of preter-modern crossings. Successful navigation of the pale relies not just on technical know-how, but extensive psychological preparation. Some of these tactics have been known for thousands of years. What has entropinetics changed then? Nothing. We remain powerless before the pale. The only real advance in pale transit is the speed with which an aerostatic craft can pierce it. Less exposure leads to less effects later. An aerostatic craft? Hybrid airships, Detective. Conventional rotors or jet engines no longer add velocity after the point of reference for motion is suspended once you cross from near pale to far pale. In essence, we throw them in and they come out the other end if we throw them precisely. And if we don't, then they don't. Gone, like a skipping stone beneath the surface. How much pale is there compared to world? The pale outweighs reality 2 to 1. There is more pale than there is matter, and the ratio is slipping. Slipping how? To our detriment, or what do you think, Detective? She looks you in the eye. It's growing. There is more and more pale. Precisely. One of the few measurable effects of the pale is that it is expanding at an unknown rate. An intuitive conclusion of that development is that one day the pale will cover everything, but that sort of talk is mostly left to extremists. It's not extreme at all. I know it's going to happen. Most people, indeed most private and government sector organizations, entire civilizations, and religions even, find handy ways to ignore or downplay that knowledge. I suggest you do the same. Gulp. It doesn't look like you're doing the same. The suggestion was meant in earnest, Detective. Live life. And that's it. Okay. Yes, sweet reality, she stomps her foot. But before we do, tell me, Detective, is this the first time you hear this? Do you really not remember anything? I'm getting a vague sense of who I am, but no, I didn't know this. Beyond curious, tell me, what do you think of the pale? Its advance can only be stopped with the immediate, total, and ruthless communism. Her eyes tense. Crow's feet radiate from them. She observes you, her bloodshot eyes, or your bloodshot eyes and swollen face. You really didn't know. This does not spell good for your investigation, Detective. If you don't even know this, then... She stops mid-sentence. This investigation will be my masterpiece. The one they remember me by, I promise. I hope so, I truly do. If I may suggest, hold on to your colleague Kitsaragi. I ran a check on him. He's very competent. In the meanwhile... Some of that assurance is meant for herself as much as it is meant for you. She must have a lot on the line here. You can have me. I will assist you in any way I can, even if we have to do it one basic term at a time. She gives you a slight bow. Good, the lieutenant returns. You've not passed out from it. Perhaps I was worried for nothing. Are we still in the reality lowdown, or should we do actual police work now? You needn't have worried. But I did anyway. He looks around, a little uncomfortable now. Damn it, you're a grown man, the lieutenant thinks. Shouldn't have gotten protective here. Right. Let's get to work, Lieutenant. Good luck, detectives. She nods at you goodbye. That was a very long conversation. That was like 29 minutes of a pure exposition. Let's go check the one trap and we'll call it a video at that point. That was the most world building I think I've had in one exposition dump in a long time. But now we know a lot about this world. It is possibly like a Discworld type situation, and it is surrounded by a pale, which is not good. Which apparently absorbs memories, or can absorb memory. It's full of radiation. The trap is full of locusts, but they seem weak and unhealthy if you lie on their backs with legs switching. No plasmid. Poor things. And that's it. That is the last of the traps that we haven't checked. Which leads us with a few things left to do. We have to do the secret passages in the Whirling and Rag. Haven't gotten that yet. They still want us to drink some booze. We're not going to do that because we're being sober. We need to... Oh yeah, we're supposed to talk to Joyce about the lynching. If we have our bag. Did we just talk to Joyce though? We also have to sing karaoke. We haven't gotten a full day for the armor's owner yet. Or did we? Let's try and call... Well, we'll call her back in this video, but we can try it soon. We need to ask around about the tattoos possible, meaning... We need to check the island for bullet traces. We need more figurines for Dolores D. Or Day. And we should confront the pigs and get our gun back. It's 4 o'clock. We're not quite to the point where we can go get our gun back, but it's closing in on that time. For now, though, we'll leave you here. Like always, if you have any suggestions or comments, please leave them below. Others, I'll see you next time. Take care.